Hey everyone, I wanted to do a video today about something that we have just finished using in our homeschool this year for my 5th grader. If you have watched any of our other kind of curriculum videos, you may know that we were doing lightning literature for my 5th grader this year. We've liked it in previous years. And this year we just found it wasn't working quite as well for us, and so we kind of set that aside. She didn't really need it for grammar or writing. We had other things. So we set that aside and just continued with the books that were part of it. And I had been looking through Core Knowledge, through their language arts. I'd never used them before. And so I was looking through possibly for some things to use next year, and I came across this, which is a 4th grade language arts units for Brown Girl Dreaming, and this was one of the books she was reading in 5th grade lightning literature. This is actually a 4th grade unit, but that's okay. So I decided that we would try it out. Since we were going to be reading this book anyway, we would test this out. I saw some that I might want to use next year, and so I thought this would be a great way for us to kind of test it and see if we like it. And I did really like it. So there's a teacher's guide, there's a student activity book, and then you have to get the book. These I just printed for free off the Core Knowledge website. I like to have things in paper form. You could just use them on a device like this one anyway. This has like some worksheets and things, so if you decide you want to use those, you would want to print this, or you can purchase these already printed from Core Knowledge. The one thing that I will say that I think is true of most Core Knowledge teacher's manuals is I feel like they're a little clunky. Like, I don't know, they're a little hard to follow. If you hear lots of background noise, my husband and son are playing Mario, and that's not a quiet game in our house. So anyway, try to ignore that. I apologize. Anyway, I feel like the teacher's manuals are a little bit clunky. Like, I don't feel like they're super easy to follow, but once you kind of get used to it, I think it's fine. It gives you in the front of the teacher's manual how everything in it aligns to Common Core standards, if that's important to you. There's a good introduction here, and the thing I liked about this is here, it kind of goes through if topics that would have been covered in other grade levels of Core Knowledge. And if they're in bold, it's something that may be relevant here. So it may be something that you need to do a little background work on with your child. Ours were fine. Like here it says, explain that stories have a beginning, middle, and end. Describe the character's plot and setting of a given story. It tells you when they covered it. So if you wanted to go back and pull that resource, you could. Here in grade 2, they did a lot of fighting for a cause. So it just tells you kind of previous knowledge that they might need to have in order to do this. But for us, it was stuff, it wasn't a problem. Okay, there's also a pacing guide. I didn't really use this. And a lot of, I mean, it's written like you're doing this in a classroom. So some of the activities we had to alter. There is a warm-up lesson, which we did not do because it was really designed to do with a group of kids. So we did not do the warm-up lesson. And we started with lesson 1, and it tells you at the top, there's basically your core connections, your reading and or writing. Let's see. Here we have reading, writing, and take home. And tells you the activity, the materials you're going to need, and then the time it's going to take. I believe these are split into 2 days. We often did them in 1 day. My daughter and I did this. We kind of have one-on-one time in our school, and that's when we did this. Now, the thing about this particular unit, because it's 4th grade, they did not have them reading this entire book. We did choose to read the entire book, and then this focuses on certain selections within the book. So I would just assign us to read, each of us independently, a certain section of it that would cover whatever poems we were going to read the next day. It also, I believe, in the first lesson, or it may have been, I can't remember, somewhere they recommended making a timeline. We just used our history timeline notebook that we have used throughout I think we started it last year. So we did just things in here that they suggested. They gave links to things to put in your timeline, and so we just did it in our timeline notebook, and that worked fine for us. So let's see, my daughter and I really enjoyed doing this together, and it was very, I don't know, I felt like we really connected through doing this. It is something that I very much had to read through everything ahead of time. The way they set up the lesson, so they give the reading, the writing, and then if each subject that it covers within language arts, it tells you what the focus as it relates to that that topic in this lesson is. So in lesson 3, by the end of this lesson, students will be able to describe the author's feelings toward other characters using details from the text, identify descriptive language, including sensory details from the text, ask and answer questions about the text, determine the meaning of words with the NESS suffix, and use a glossary in order to determine or clarify the meaning of vocabulary words. So it gives you this for every lesson that's in here. My stuff printed kind of wonky. I don't know why, so I had to keep, like, tons of letters were missing. I don't know what I did when I printed it, but anyway, that's something to note. It looks fine on the screen. Mine just printed wonky. All right, so anyway, as I was saying, you do have to read this ahead of time. It tells you what advanced preparation you need to do. Like here, it's not a lot. Let's get another lesson and see. Here, it wants you to put a chart up on the board. We didn't really do that. We just used them out of her activity book. But you definitely want to read through it ahead of time, and because there's probably lots of this you can cut out. So anyway, it starts with the reading. They did small group. We just did, we read the selection, like a chunk of pages that we're going to include the selections for the lesson of the day on our own. And then when she and I came together, we would take turns reading out loud the selections that we were going to discuss. So here they have reading this particular selection, reviewing the student's response from an activity page, and then you're introducing the selection, and you're going to be using another activity page. Now the activity pages, I found them to be helpful. I like when there's some kind of chart or worksheet she can kind of fill out to help us understand. In this one, the focus was a lot on sensory details and showing rather than telling, as far as when you're sharing in your writing, how can you use sensory language to show us what you're talking about rather than just telling us what you're talking about. And so a lot of the activities in here were related to that. Every section has vocabulary that is going to be in that section, and it's in the student guide here. So we would just kind of read through these together, talk about what part of speech they were if it was necessary. And again, this one's got small groups, so we didn't do that because we don't have small groups. So like for this one, what we would have done is we would have read the vocabulary together, and then we would have started here. We would have read the poem out loud, and then I would go through these questions and we would talk about them. It gives you lots of literal questions to ask. Describe the house in which the Woodson family lived. It tells you guide students through the description as they write down answers. This one had an activity page that went with it, where you were, let's see if I can find it, where you're writing down, let me see, sensory details in certain selections, and then there's like elements of a memoir, another page that we went back to time and time again. So anyway, there's literal questions, there's inferential questions. I really liked that they included these, and I also like when it says answers may vary, but they still give you like an example of what an answer might include, and I found that really helpful. It would point out, the one thing that was a little difficult is it would refer to certain lines, like lines 5 through 6 or whatever, so I was constantly having to like count to see like where it was. if it would support, it's something that they thought you might need to explain to your student. And then again, just on with the questions as you worked your way through the selection. I believe in almost every lesson there's word work. They would pick one word and refer to how it was written in the selection. And then you would kind of pull it apart, and this one was the word sly. You would talk about what slyness, what slyness means. You would ask them to use slyness in a sentence, and then it would give you some little activity. So this was using the suffix ness, and we would say, okay, fresh, what does that mean? What does it mean when we add ness to it? So different things like that. And then it would move into the writing portion. And this, I think in their pacing guide, this would be on a separate day. We did a lot of it on the same day. And so by the end of this unit, they're writing kind of like a mini memoir. And it just tied in really nicely with this memoir. And her sensory language in this book is so amazing that it was really helpful. It just tied in so nicely with the writing assignment. And this is kind of what's in their student activity pack about each of the selections. We looked at the setting, how it was described, and what event happened in that setting, which was good. And then on some of the selections, we went through the sensory details of the setting, what we saw, what we heard, what we smelled, what we tasted, what we touched in that setting. And then as it got closer, we did a lot of activities with sensory language. And as we got more through it, in the student activity book, they started examining parts of a descriptive paragraph, and then they had to do an activity where they came up with some ideas of what they might want to write about for their own mini memoir. It gave them a sheet to kind of work through some ideas. And then when they were ready to start, it just laid it out: write your topic sentence, write your 3 details, write your concluding sentence, and they had to write 3 paragraphs. It went through kind of the rubric for a memoir, so we could kind of go through and see, did their memoir meet all of those? There's an editing checklist for them. You talk through with them about the writing process. I feel like if Core Knowledge and Lightning Lit could breed, they could do something really great, because there were a lot of really great things about this. There were also a lot of pages of, well, not a lot, but several pages where they just went through and answered questions about the selection. And they were mostly questions that we had talked about during the lesson. So it was a good kind of follow-up to that. So all in all, we really enjoyed this. We enjoyed the book. And I don't think either of us were like, I don't think she was super excited about reading it, but she really did like it. At the end, she said she really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And I just really appreciated the tie-in with the writing with this, with the word work. And then a lot of, history tie-in with this that we were able to talk about with the civil rights movement. We watched Hidden Figures, and what was the other one? Remember? Oh, there's another one. They recommended it in the front. I can't remember now. All right, well, there's another movie. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, so that was a good tie-in as well. And now she is working on a family tree, her family tree. And she will add some things to that from that to her history timeline. And that's just a good tie-in because we get a lot about Jacqueline Woodson's family tree kind of in the memoir. So anyway, all in all, we really liked it. We are going to do another unit from Core Knowledge this year that I'm going to try with both of my kids. And then, like I said, there's a couple that I want to do next year. Now, I will say I don't think that I could do a whole year of Core Knowledge Language Arts at these older levels because it's a lot of focus on nonfiction. And it's a lot. Well, I feel like it was really good to kind of dissect this memoir in the way we did and get into all the nitty-gritty details and pick each one apart. I don't think I would want everything we read that year to have to be dissected in that way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would like to do maybe other things where we are just enjoying reading it and not maybe dissecting it as much, but still talking about it. So I don't think I would do a full year of core knowledge language arts, but I would certainly pull certain units that I felt were appropriate. So yeah, we definitely enjoyed it. I think it is definitely worth looking into. Now, I don't know much about their like K-3 language arts. That has more some skills lessons in it too, like with phonics and things, I believe. So I have not tried any of those, but we're going to do a couple 4th grade ones this year, and then there are some, I'm not sure if they're 5th or 6th grade that I'm looking at for next year. But like I said, I really liked it. I appreciated the types of information that they included within the lesson. I thought the word work was really nice and just a very gentle way to put some of that in there. I liked the different types of questions that you ask, you know, as you're going through the reading. And I really like how well the writing assignment tied in and how they guided you through that. So anyway, it might be worth checking out for your homeschool. If you have any questions, let me know down below. If you've ever used core knowledge language arts in your homeschool, I'd love to hear what you thought of it.